So we'll go straight into having an exciting discussion with these superstars on the scene. My friends Gila, who is currently the executive director of iCar Collective, which we'll share about in a minute. Gal Neumann-Wexler, who's a partner at Lineberg and also the co-founder of this really cool thing called Hamal VC. And Debbie Garner, who is the co-CEO of FemSelect and a veteran in the women's health space. So let's just dive right in. How about that? So we talked a lot about, we've said women's health, but we actually haven't really defined what we mean, because I think a lot of people think of women's health today and they think of, oh, that's like having to do with something with women's reproductive needs. So Gila, your background, you've been in the women's health kind of cheering space for many, many years, even before your current venture. So maybe you can help us understand what do we mean when we say femtech or women's health?
Sure. So does this work? Yeah, okay. So women's health, good question. A lot of people think it's all about reproductive organs, that if we talk women's health, we talk about uterus and vaginas, but that's actually not the case, and I'm using those words on purpose because it's okay, we can say those words, even in board meetings. But the fact is that the way we think, the way McKinsey and a lot of VC funds have decided to define women's health is the diseases that impact women primarily, and those are usually linked to the reproductive organs, gynecology, fertility, and things like this. But then you have all of the diseases that impact women differently or disproportionately than men. Differently, like cardiovascular diseases or mental health diseases for that matter, and disproportionately like autoimmune diseases or areas where actually we don't know because we haven't studied it enough, like Orna was saying about the data gap. So for example, anything around the brain, we don't know enough about men to know enough about women. So for example, dementia or any Alzheimer, like we have very, very far from knowing anything about women.
Great, thanks. And Debbie, you are a veteran founder, and maybe you can share some of your key insights about building a company in the women's health space. What maybe is different about it, or should it not be considered so different than building any other startup? Is there something unique that you can share about it?
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, it's exciting to be in women's health because I feel like every day I'm hopefully helping other women. But at the same time, it should be based on the same principles of any other startup, and the way that investors will look at your business is the same as any other startup. I mean, there are, of course, social impact investors, and there are those who like to invest in women's health, but they're very, very few and far between. So the majority of your investors will be those who are looking to see impact, and impact, I mean ROI, as Michal presented earlier. They will want to see that they can get an exit similar or better to what they can get, and investors are flooded. Maybe you'll even talk about that, how many presentations you get in your inbox a day, and most of them you probably don't ever look at. So you have to make an impact. Now, one of the things that's challenging in women's health is we don't have yet enough exits in women's health for it to be a self-fulfilling prophecy where someone looks at women's health and says, oh yes, I know, my friend made money over there, my buddy made money, I'm gonna make money. No, we don't have that. So they're always looking for the comps, okay, the comparable companies and the comparable exits, so that they can see that there's going to be that extra ROI. The added difficulty, I would think, and I know for us, I run a company, we have a minimally invasive device for prolapse repair when your pelvic floor is falling out. Most men and a lot of women never even heard the word prolapse. They don't know what it is. So rather than just grabbing them on that email tagline, or when you open the presentation, it takes them so long to even figure out what you're talking about, they've moved on. So you're kind of battling upstream when you have to convince them of the problem. And I think Michal presented niche. I have been told so many times that we have a niche product, okay? Every woman goes through menopause. You had a baby, you didn't have a baby, I don't care. You are going through menopause. And if you found a way not to, please let me know because I need to know how.
It's like I read in one of the papers too, like it's not that we're only 51%, that we're 51% of the population, but we also create 100%
of the
of the
babies.
babies.
Exactly. So every woman will go through menopause whether she likes it or not. Now, not every woman will have prolapse, but over 50% of women will have a pelvic floor issue in her lifetime, and the number one risk factor is vaginal birth. A lot of babies are born vaginally, so, and we're still told we're a niche condition, we're a niche product. They don't necessarily believe in the end. So again, it all comes back to, are they hearing not only that it's a $1 trillion market and McKinsey's writing about it and, Jill Biden, they're, talking about it, but they have to see the exits. And at the end of the day, it's our job as entrepreneurs to show them how they can get to that exit. If there aren't enough there yet, we have to create them, and then hopefully the loop will be closed.
Great. Gal, from the investor side, do you agree with what Debbie said? Do you have any additional observations from your experience, maybe also the company that you guys invested in women's health?
Yeah, sure. So before diving into Ovia Health, which is a portfolio company of ours from 2013 in the space of fertility and then pregnancy and early parenthood, I want to put just asterisk. I'll return to that in a second. But one of the things that bother me the most is the fact that we need to start talking about female-dominated conditions all the time, and we're not talking about it enough. We're talking about reproductive, and at the end of the day, as investors, we need to make money to our investors. Otherwise, we're not doing our jobs. And we need to remember that. And so, for example, take fertility. If I'm doing another fertility app in a space that a lot of people are doing fertility, and I'm doing it in a similar way, then it will be very hard for me to get an investment. Now, take the use case of Ovia, for example. We invested in them, which was, in the beginning, initially, it started with the direct-to-consumer app covering tracking menstruation, help you get pregnant. It started there. They actually started there and moved together with their clients to accompany pregnancy, and that way they can provide interventions and insights about their pregnancy experience, and then to early parenthood, which was at the time the most crowded space. Now, at their peak, they covered 25% of the birth in the States, which was massive, and they did so because they had a lot of data. They were a great data company. And so they were able to interesting insights in relation to Ovia, which was, they started in fertility, but they actually wanted to go to a later phase. They were selling at the end to insurance companies and to employers because they wanted for their clients to be loyal and to go with them throughout the journey to the toughest place to sell. The second thing that I think is also important to mention is that they were getting all these clients, and then they were able to go to the health plan and say, see, we noticed that we have a few thousand of your patients. Don't you prefer to engage with us in an enterprise contract when relevant, and then we can provide them interventions for high-risk conditions so they'll be safer, and they'll say, you have them anyway? We don't have to get them for you? That's great. Now, just closing on the argument, I want to say that to me, the main thing for you to crack as women's health innovators is really identifying those areas where women are the suffering crowd, the ones that have the late diagnosis or challenges, and then tackle them. Tackle autoimmune, tackle late diagnosis and cardiovascular, tackle mental health in an innovative way. But I think that's really, really important, and that is sometimes overlooked, and I agree with Gila, reproductive is a component of the women's health segment.
Thank you. Gila, I want to add to that, and maybe also, since today we're focusing on the combination between mental health and women's health, maybe, and now with your current hat focusing on mental health after October 7th, maybe you can bring it all together for us.
So first I want to add to what you're saying, because I think it's super important. You're solving, a lot of women's health companies are coming with, and I'll say something that's going to sound really mean, but we're seeing a lot of inexperienced women who experience something in their daily life and they want to make a difference. So they come with a lot of passion and a lot of ideas, but then they don't have the experience that a lot of other CEOs have. And unfortunately, it created a little bit of a backlash from the VC companies that now are seeing a lot of companies that come with a great idea for the patients, but not necessarily ideas that have a paying business model. And so one of the questions here was, you know, who's paying for this? And that should be always the first question, not the last question. Unfortunately, the way the model goes today is that you're solving a pain point for someone. There is no room for luxury. There's no room for, you know, VCs looking for solving a problem, and the problem usually means, you know, saving money somewhere. So is it saving money for the Maarechet HaBriut and overall the health system? Is it for the insurance companies? Is it for the hospital? Be really, really precise on who's saving money and how. And by the way, it extends to mental health. We're seeing a ton of apps coming up for mental health. Since October 7th, I can tell you, both in the NGO space and in the startup space, we're seeing a lot of people that come and say, I'm going to do an app, and it's going to be, you know, AI driven, and so all of the omes, all of the problem, you know, the burden on the physicians is now going to go through my app, and so explain what's different about yours and the other 10 that we've seen, you know, today. Do you have more data than anybody else? Do you have the most amazing professor who's come up with the way to diagnose faster than others? Because we all want to know, like, what's going to be special. And the solution, again, cannot be only for the end patient. I wish we were a world where we're solving all of the patient's end, and that's what you were saying as well. You could go to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you can go to Impact Investor if that's what you've got. I've, you know, no problem, but then not to VC, because VC has a different business model. Now, question on mental health, women's health. So a lot of you know that I was 100% in, you know, health equity, which was most of my time on women's health. And now, since October 7th, I've moved completely to mental health. I was actually the interim mankalit of the Mechav Marpeh here, so my worlds are colliding for 3 months. And for the last 3 months, I'm now building IKAR Collective, which is looking at mental health at the population health level for the government and to advance trauma healing. And one of the reasons why I find so much, you know, why those two fields have always been the closest field in my mind is because of this data gap and this knowledge gap, right? When you talk about health equity, a lot of people think about affordability and access. You know, some people think only, you know, financial access. Some people know about geographic access. But very few people understand that even if we have all the money in the world, and even if we have a clinic in every single place today, we don't have enough knowledge and enough data to treat women and to treat mental health for everyone at the right level. We're super, super far because the science is just not there. And that's why, you know, I think especially now in Israel, we can't afford not to build that playbook. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world, and unfortunately, we're going to have to build it ourselves, and later on, you know, bring it to the rest of the world because it doesn't exist.
It gives me hope to hear about all the great initiatives here in Israel. We talked about the big, you know, multi-billion initiatives in the States, but there's so much great work going on here, especially including your amazing initiative, Hamal VC, which you guys should also check out. Maybe as a kind of positive, inspiring final part of the speed panel, if each one can give us, like in one sentence, starting with you, Debbie, kind of your one takeaway or recommendation for these fantastic teams. Great job, guys, by the way, congratulations. On the whole journey, you know, reaching this milestone, but the whole process you went through, which is very significant, obviously. So takeaway, recommendation for the teams as entrepreneurs.
Yes, I'm going to repeat what Gila said. Know who is your paying customer and why will they pay for your product.
So I won't repeat, I promise. understand your target user and how they engage with your product, because, for example, for insurance companies, engagement is everything.
Well, I guess I'll just repeat the competitive advantage. What's different with you? Like, do you have the best team, the best technology, the access to data that nobody has? So that it's very clear what you're bringing to the table.